Alright, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis, this special pre-recorded version of Unqualified Analysis. Today we are doing the NFC North Preview. Before we get into that, though, got to plug the shit. So, my Twitter, it was on the bottom right-hand portion of the screen. Sorry for not having a video last time. Once again, your boy's dumb. Didn't check the audio before I started recording video. My bad. Yay. Hand up. I need to be better, and I will be better. From today forward, I need to think of a punishment for myself if I do in fact end up not hitting record on the audio. We'll come up with that. We absolutely will. We got some time to do that. I'll think of that while I'm on vacation next week, huh? A punishment for myself for not recording audio on the video portion of this. But by the by on that one. So today we got the NFC North Preview. Yeah, let's just get into it, man. We don't really have anything else to talk about. Decided not to do the college football preview today because yeah, your boy is tired. Your boy is real tired and was very busy today. Well, I'll leave it at that. The last 2 hours or so, it was a long 2 hours. I'll just say that much. But I digress on that front. So we'll just keep moving from there. The NFC North Preview. We're starting, division standings from last year, like we usually do. So obviously, Detroit Lions won the division last year. Had a hell of a season. Lose a couple players in the secondary, but add a few more in the draft, and they somehow keep Ben Johnson. I don't know what's going on in those interview rooms, or if he's just being ultra selective on what jobs he wants. But the fact that he hasn't been hired as a head coach yet, I mean, it's a little alarming. Little bit alarming, but hey, maybe he just is just waiting for the right opportunity. Maybe it's something in the interview room. I don't know. Either way, they still got a hell of an offensive coordinator in the building with Ben Johnson, a hell of a head coach in Dan Quinn, a hell of a defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn. Just a great coaching staff, really good roster. So let's just get into it, shall we? So, starting off in the draft portion of this whole thing, talked about the secondary. It was their biggest concern last year. It's been their biggest concern, really, since Dan Campbell and crew showed up there. So, let's just get into it. So, in the draft portion of this thing, Terrion Arnold they took in the first round. He's out of Alabama, a cornerback. He'll probably slot in right away as a major contributor here. Second round, they go cornerback Enos Rakestraw out of Missouri. That's a guy that I think really fits the culture there. Really physical player, plays angry, which I think Dan Campbell is really going to enjoy, and I think he's going to get some good playing time this year. Then you skip ahead to the fourth round. They go with Giovanni Manu out of British Columbia. Shout out to Canada. The offensive tackle. So probably won't see a whole lot of playing time there. But Sione Vaki out of Utah, they get in the fourth round as well at safety. And then from there, it's 6-round picks. Maybe they contribute, maybe they don't. We'll talk about them when they do. How's about that? So there's the draft. I think, kind of light on the picks. Had some trades that kind of, took away from their other draft capital. But the picks that they did get, especially those two in the first and second round, I think are really going to pay dividends for them this year. And they're in a position of big-time need there at cornerback. So with that said, let's get into the depth chart, shall we? So on the offensive side of the ball, it's a bunch of names that you already know. So starting off at quarterback, we got Jared Goff. Been an absolute revelation since he came over from the Rams. A top 10 quarterback when he's at his best. And he's been very good under this Ben Johnson scheme. So great positional value there at quarterback, even though he's getting a whole lot of money, but that's besides the point here. Don't be parsing my words. So at running back, they have got same two from last year, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, with Craig Reynolds as the third. I believe that was the same thing. Also, forgot Sione Vaki also played running back, not just a safety. He plays running back. He's a 4-string running back on this team right now. So yeah, forgot about that. Fun player. I really hope he's good at the NFL level, because that would be just great to see. Because I assume if he's starting on defense, he's probably going to end up getting some playing time on offense as well. So interesting guy to watch, and hope he does well there in Detroit. You look at the wide receivers now. You have got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Khalif Raymond. The only new one there is Khalif Raymond. Obviously, their third receiver, I'm forgetting his name. I think it's Josh Reynolds. went over to, I believe, the Raiders this offseason. So they got a little bit of a hole there at the third spot. Khalif Raymond's going to have to step up. But behind him, they got Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was good at one time with the not the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cleveland Browns, a different AFC North team, which, by the way, I did forget to mention, Nate Herbig was starting center for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now he is on IR with a rotator cuff injury. So probably should have mentioned that at the top of the show. We're here now, though. So now you know, second round pick, whose name escapes me now, will be in the starting lineup. I apologize to that man for forgetting his name, but back to the Lions here. So they're going to need one of either Khalif Raymond, Donovan Peoples-Jones, maybe someone we're not even talking about right now to step up in that third position. But the top two, not bad. You really need Jameson Williams to step up this year, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is so good, they can still get some stuff done in the passing game just by leaning on him a little bit more. But you really do need Jameson Williams to step up big time this year. That's the main thing. You need him to live up to that first round projection that you put on him when you took him 8 overall, and really everyone put on him. I shouldn't just single out the Lions in that. They need him to be really good this year, and I don't know if he will, but that's what they need in that receiving core. Also, Sam Laporta at tight end, that'll really kind of alleviate some concerns at wide receiver. Great rookie year. I expect him to be even better in the second year. I mean, it takes longer for tight ends to adjust to the league. So if he was really good last year, I think he'll be really good this year as well. I like his potential going forward there. Another Iowa tight end. Color me shocked. Offensive line. I mean, the only new guy is Kevin Zeitler. Who knows what he has left in the tank. He's your starting right guard right now, though. Outside of that, though, Taylor Decker at left tackle, Graham Glasgow at left guard, Frank Ragnow at center, and Penei Sewell at right tackle. It's a really good offensive line, even if Kevin Zeitler isn't quite as good as maybe you're hoping he would be being in the starting lineup. Still, all the 4 others are stars, quite frankly. They're all very good. So once again, they got a top 10 at the very worst offensive line unit in my mind, and that's really the how they butter their bread essentially on this offense. Really built around the run game, really built around that offensive line. Overall, I look at this offense. Hey, is Ben Johnson still the offensive coordinator? Check. Is Jared Goff still the starting quarterback? Check. Is Amon-Ra St. Brown still on the team? Check. Is the backfield still a combination of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs? Check as well. Top 10 offense, for sure. Once again this year, well, maybe not for sure, it's a little bit strong, but I definitely feel in my heart of hearts that's going to be a top 10 offense once again, just because, I mean, they got all this continuity outside of a few like little positions there, all this continuity on the offense, especially at the coaching position. No reason in my mind to think that they won't be a top 10 unit once again. So that you don't really have a whole lot to worry about there if you are a Lions fan. On the defensive side of the ball, we got Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader, and Marcus Davenport rounding out the defensive line there. So as far as as that goes, I love Aiden Hutchinson. Marcus Davenport, I mean, if you are... Listen, folks, if you're counting on Marcus Davenport to play, even like 10 games for you, you may be asking a little bit too much. I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, he's never proven once in his career that he's able to stay healthy. I saw it last year with the Vikings, and I don't hold it against the kid. It's not his, kid. He's probably older than me, but I don't hold it against the player at all, really. I mean, it's not his fault that he gets injured all the time. I mean, I don't know what his preparation habits are or anything like that, but I mean, we're going to assume that they're sound, so it's not necessarily his fault that he gets injured all the time. But that's the reality of the situation. Since he came into the league as a first-round pick, he's had the same storyline over and over again. Immensely talented pass rusher, can't stay on the field just for various injuries. Usually lower body, too, which is going to catch up with him at some point. It is probably going to shorten his career, compared to the average, very talented player at the NFL level. You better have a good backup plan behind him. And, I mean, the depth right now is, James Houston, Zach Pascal, Isaac Ukwu, Mitchell Agude. Not a very good, man. I'll tell you what. I don't necessarily love the makeup there of the pass rush. I'm not sure. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson's going to have to be an absolute star, and even then, I'm not sure how much other contributions he's going to get unless by some miracle Marcus Davenport stays healthy, which, again, I just can't. I can't just wrap my head around, honestly. It would be awesome. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see all the success and, maybe get paid even again. That would be cool. But I have my doubts, and those doubts are founded in very good reasons. So mixed feelings about the defensive line, but we'll see how it works from there. On the linebacking core, we got Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, and Derek Barnes. Solid linebacking group. I think Jack Campbell is kind of coming into his own a little bit. Well, that was a bold-faced lie. I mean, he was a first-round pick, so you hope that he comes into his own here soon. They're really hoping that he steps up this year. But Alex Anzalone, really solid middle linebacker. Derek Barnes, I don't know. He's a player. Got 42 solo tackles last year. So, I mean, he's solid. He's solid. That's what you can ask for him. He's solid. Kind of just once again reiterating, you need Jack Campbell to step up this year and be really good next to Alex Anzalone to continue this thing going forward. Front seven overall, I put him right like middle of the pack. You got one really good pass rusher in Aiden Hutchinson, but outside of that, I mean, it's okay. It's not awesome. It's just okay. So they're like right around average. On the back end, though, you have got Carlton Davis coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I want to say. Terrion Arnold is immediately slotted in as a starter on the outside, and Amik Robertson is at nickelback. You got Emmanuel Mosley hanging out there in the wings. Enos Rakestraw, who they just drafted, hanging out in the wings as well. Kindle Vildor. All of a sudden, I mean, also, let's look at the safeties here. I'm not getting ahead of myself. Kirby Joseph, assassin of knees. I have my quarrels with that man. You killed my sweet baby boy TJ Hawkinson last year. I mean, how could you? You piece of absolute garbage. I don't want to besmirch the man's character. I don't know if he's doing it on purpose, but this motherfucker needs to stop diving at knees. I'll just say that right now. We'll just keep it moving from there. But yeah, him and Brian Branch on the back end. All of a sudden, I think that the secondary is actually better than the front seven, quite frankly, for the Detroit Lions, and I think that's just better suited for the modern NFL. Like, maybe they'll give up some rushing yards. They were a good rushing defense last year, so I don't necessarily think that's the case either. Maybe you can have your linebackers exposed a little bit, but if you have a really good back end, and I think they're good. They're above average. I don't know how good they're going to be this year, but they really addressed their needs very well this past offseason. So I love the makeup of what they're working with here. This back end is, I mean, if you can cover on the back end in the modern NFL, it's going to get you a long way defensively. I think much longer of a way in this 2024 NFL than stopping the run and, playing, ball control offense or whatever you would do in that situation. Though they do kind of play ball control offense, there's an explosive element to it that you understand. You understand right now what I'm trying to talk about. But overall, I look at this, you have Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator, as I mentioned before. And overall, I mean, could, conceivably be a dark horse for top 10, but I kind of would generally put them more just like middle of the pack. We'll see where they finish in the teens, but I think the teens is where they ultimately belong. I think the back end's going to be good. Front seven has some flaws. Overall, just going to be a little above average, maybe just around that Mendoza line, I would say. But as far as the record prediction goes, so I forgot to pull up the notes app for this. You're going to have to give me a minute to bring that up real quick. I do apologize for that. There's nothing I can do to change it at this point. It's all water under the bridge. It looks like I don't have a note for that. So cool. We'll just make a new one. How about that? We'll just make a new one. Give me just a second here while I type some shitty shit in. Yeah. I'll get to that text here in a bit. I do appreciate that text though. He's a good guy. He's a good dude. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. Okay, so worst case scenario I see for the Detroit Lions this year. I would still say 10-7. I don't think there's a reality where the Detroit Lions finish outside of the playoff picture, anything short of an injury to the starting quarterback. And obviously, you never hope about that. You knock on wood that doesn't happen, especially for a guy that's going to come back from, career being pronounced dead, pretty much, is what happened with the LA Rams. And now he's playing as well as he is. Barring that possibility, I don't see a reality where they finish worse than 10-7. They should be in the playoff picture, even if they are having a little bit of a disappointment season. I just don't see it being worse than 10-7 and still having a run at the playoffs here and getting it all together. Best case scenario, Yep. 13-4. 13-4, I think, is the best case scenario for them. So I just, something about this team, just the way they play offense, the really solid running back room, the great offensive line, the quarterback play, it's been so good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. The defense has played very well under Aaron Glenn, consistently gotten better every single year. If it all comes together once again, no question in my mind, they could finish 13-4 and be right there for the 1 seed in the NFC. Who would have thought I would be saying that 5 years ago? Crazy how good of a job that Brad and Dan have done there in Detroit. Brad Holmes, there it is. Brad Holmes, man. I thought his name was Brad Johnson the last time. Absolutely not. What do we got here? Oh, you fucking asshole. Sorry. Adam Schefter just, sometimes he just gets you, and that time he got me. Whatever, man. We're just going to keep it moving. The Cowboys signed Linval Joseph, but all I saw was the Cowboys sign, and I thought it was going to be like CeeDee Lamb, this motherfucker. Either way, my prediction for the Lions this season, let's go 11-6. I think 11-6 is a good record prediction for them this year. I think maybe they finish a little bit worse than they did last season, but ultimately, I just feel like this year they're still a really good team. They're still going to be right there when it's all said and done. And again, I just like the makeup of the coaching staff. I like the makeup of, the offense, the defense. Just basically everything. I love this organization right now. Wish they weren't in my division, but I love what the new regime has done with the place, so to speak. So let's move on to the second team here in the division last year. That is the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, Jordan Love kind of started slow last year, but ultimately down the stretch was one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL, and that's no fluke, folks. You see the throws that he was making last year. He was just throwing dimes out there. It was impressive to watch, and the defense. You get rid of the defensive coordinator finally. He's so bad I can't even remember his name right now, but be gone with you. Be gone with you, sir. You are no longer needed in this establishment anymore. So you bring in who was it? Jeff Hafley from Boston College, former head coach. Now he steps in to the defensive coordinator role in the NFL. You expect a little bit better output from them. They are still a very talented unit, and they still have good players. You just need someone to bring it all together. Jeff Hafley might be that guy. You still got Matt LaFleur on the other side of the ball and as the head coach. Brian Gutekunst has been, really, really good. The Packers always seem to have someone waiting in the wings to take over that GM role and do a really good job. And hey, Gutekunst is just the most recent one, and he's probably going to be there the next 20 years, if I had to guess. So good for him. The Packers are an organization that has a lot of cheap young talent, is headed in the right direction. They're doing so really fast. This year, they are a sneaky dark horse Super Bowl contender. I will say that right now. I think the Packers have a really good team this year, and this is the year that it all could pop for them. So watch out for them. But let's look at their draft real quick. So in the first round, they get offensive tackle Jordan Morgan out of the University of Arizona. This is a classic Green Bay Packers pick. They just went offensive line. Keep the offensive line good, and your quarterback's going to stay clean. And quarterback stays clean, he has easier, better decisions to make. no-brainer there in the first round. I don't even care if they necessarily needed it. Getting a guy on the offensive line to continue the trend is never a bad thing, in my opinion. Never a bad thing. And in the second round, they go with Edgerrin Cooper. They needed another linebacker in there after Devondre Campbell left in the offseason, was asked to leave, whatever happened there. He goes over to the 49ers, so Edgerrin Cooper will probably slot in there pretty quickly, I would imagine. I mean, tackling machine out of Texas A&M. I mean, he was an absolute force out there. Between him and Patrick Queen, they're going to have some good players, at least stopping the run, sure tacklers. I like that pickup by them in the second round with Edgerrin Cooper. In the third round, also in the second round, they get safety Javon Bullard out of the University of Georgia. They bring in, I believe it was Xavier McKinney this offseason. Yes, it was Xavier McKinney this offseason. But having a guy like Jonathan Bullard back there to maybe, pair, next to him, not a bad thing at all. Not a bad thing even in the slightest. And in the second round pick, you expect him to play fairly quickly, I would imagine. Third round pick, they go with Marshawn Lloyd, running back out of USC, formerly of the other USC, South Carolina. Talented young player. Get him in the third round. If you're getting a running back in the third round, you expect him to get some good playing time in this rotation. They already have Josh Jacobs there. They signed this offseason. Good amount of funny money in that contract. So Marshawn Lloyd, I would consider him the running back of the future on this team. But look for a solid 1-2 punch between him and Josh Jacobs this year. Third round pick as well. They get Tyron Hopper, linebacker out of Missouri. Again, position of need. Good pickup there. In the fourth round, they get safety Evan Williams out of Oregon. Great whiskey. That's not true at all. Terrible, terrible whiskey. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone out there. Better than the bottom shelf, but also is probably on the bottom shelf. So it's, rankings among the bottom shelf, not bad. Overall, not fantastic. But they get the whiskey man out of Oregon as a safety as well for some good depth. You get Jacob Monk out of Duke, center in the fifth round. And then we're just getting into a bunch of depth players here. They get, Michael Pratt, QB of the future, QB out of Tulane, goes to him in the seventh round. Hey, watch out. Jordan Love's got some competition this year. Maybe there's a surprise starting announcement before I even put this episode out. Hey, you never know. You never know, folks. But there's the draft. Let's go look at their roster here real quick. So, starting quarterback, obviously, Jordan Love. I expect him to be a top 10 quarterback for the entirety of this season. He is immensely talented. He learned for a couple good years behind Aaron Rodgers and showed towards the end of last season and in the playoffs. I think he's going to be a star this year, and I think he's going to be a star for a long time, and it disgusts me. You know what? It just disgusts me. All right, so at running back, Josh Jacobs is the starter. A.J. Dillon slated as the backup. I'm not sure how good A.J. Dillon is, folks. I think Marshawn Lloyd is going to take his spot by the end of the year, and who knows what happens with A.J. Dillon after this year. He's not lived up to expectations since they drafted him. He'll get you short yardage, but he's a lot like the Toby Gerhart of the Vikings back in the day. If you need a yard, he'll get you a yard. If you need 5 yards, he's going to get you a yard, and that's just kind of the way I see A.J. Dillon. I mean, good goal line back. But outside of that, I mean, he's never going to be a great yards per carry guy in the NFL. And I invite him to prove me wrong. I just don't think he will. I feel like Marshawn Lloyd's going to take his spot at some point. They're just my little prediction for the course of the season here. Wide receiver, an insanely deep group, man. I mean, Christian Watson is your number one, which, I mean, as the number ones go, maybe not exactly what you would like there. You want probably something a little bit more marquee, but Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton, Malik Heath. You don't necessarily know all of those names, but just know they're all pretty good players. I mean, Malik Heath was kind of a throw-in there, but he caught a touchdown last year. He had a one good game with the Packers last year, so he's not some complete scrub. He's good depth for sure, and especially when you have a great quarterback. It's a recipe for magic. Then you look at the tight end room. You got Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, who you drafted last year. Luke Musgrave, obviously the higher upside in the receiving category, but Tucker Kraft also still a very, very good tight end. Showed some really promising stuff in the receiving category too. Just a loaded receiver room. If you just look at the number one Just the number one wide receiver. They probably rank somewhere in the middle of the pack. I mean, Christian Watson's had some health issues. He's been spectacular when he's been out there, but, has trouble staying out there. I grant you that. But you look at between the tight end room and the wide receiver core, I don't know if there's a better wide receiver group in the entire NFL. I really don't. I love this Packers wide receiver core. The sheer depth alone makes this, to me, it's probably the number one wide receiver core in the NFL. Like, it's insane that just the top to bottom, just the even level of talent from top to bottom. Just really good players all over that receiving group. And with an offensive guy like Matt LaFleur, it's a recipe for magic right there. And not to mention a really solid backfield between Josh Jacobs and whoever ultimately takes that number 2 spot in the backfield. And you look at the offensive line. So, left tackle, they got Rasheed Walker. Left guard, they got Elton Jenkins, Hail State. Center, they got Josh Myers. Right guard, they got Jordan Morgan. And right tackle, they got Zach Tom. Jacob Monk is sitting in the wings that I talked about from the draft. Obviously, Jordan Morgan, they bumped into right guard. So that's your first round pick starting right out of the gates. You got to kind of worry about the tackle spot. I mean, Rasheed Walker, kind of an unknown commodity, and the guy behind him is Andre Dillard, who was so bad last season, so ungodly horrible last season, that they signed him to a big contract, and they didn't even make a salary cap move to cut him. They ate like $10+ million in dead cap to get him off their roster because he played so short of expectations last year when they brought him into free agency. So that left tackle position's got to worry you. It worries me for sure. Zach Tom, not exactly an all-star starter at the right tackle either. So the interior looks good to me. I love the interior there. A lot of continuity, a lot of young talent there, at least with Jordan Morgan, Elton Jenkins. I don't know if you consider him a young talent anymore, but talented player. The tackles would worry me. But overall, you got that quarterback, you got that receiving core, you got that backfield, you got a good interior of the offensive line, a mobile quarterback that can kind of avoid some pressure. I feel like this is a top 10 unit for sure this year. I mean, I think this Packers offense is going to be explosive, and maybe some ways that surprise some people. It won't surprise you and me. You and I both know what's going on here with this. With this offense, and I like their makeup. I don't think they'll be top 5, but top 10 feels like a good bet to me for this Packers offense. On the defensive side of the ball, we got a lot of returning starters right now. I mean, we got Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, I think, is a new guy in there, but former first-round pick Devontae Wyatt sitting in the wings. At this point, if he's not starting in year 3, you got to worry about the validity of that first-round pick. But Rashawn Gary at the other defensive end, really solid defensive line. Obviously, I mean, you hope that the pass rush is a little bit better this year, but a really solid defensive line. I got no questions there. Behind them, in the linebacker group, we've got Quay Walker, Eric Wilson, Isaiah McDuffie. Edgerrin Cooper is sitting back there behind him. I feel like Edgerrin Cooper's going to get more play as the season goes on. I think you don't draft a guy like that in the second round and then just sit him behind whoever you have in the starting lineup. And, the Packers do work differently. There's times that they have absolutely, sat first-round picks for longer than people expect. I mean, hey, Lucas Van Ness on the defensive line. He's not starting either, along with Devontae Wyatt. So, hey, maybe Edgerrin Cooper. Maybe he doesn't play. I just have a feeling he's going to find his way into that starting lineup there at some point. Overall, a bit of a mixed bag in the front seven. I consider them solidly, maybe a little bit above the Mendoza line. I mean, I like Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith. Kenny Clark is still a beast. I'm talking to myself into this a little bit more. They're certainly above average. I don't know where they rank, but I think they're certainly above average there in the front seven. On the back end, we have got Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon now starting in the nickel slot. Hey, good for him. We'll see how that works out for them playing wise, but hey, good for him for getting the opportunity there in the nickel back. Kick return maven out there. And then on the back end, you got Xavier McKinney you bring in for a big contract in the offseason, and you got Javon Bullard sitting there as the starting strong safety with the whiskey man, Evan Williams, sitting there behind them. So overall, I feel like the secondary is a little bit better than the front seven. I feel like Jair Alexander's our legit number one corner in this league. Xavier McKinney is a really good addition at safety that I think is going to pay dividends for them right away. Eric Stokes, probably going to step up a little bit opposite of Jair Alexander, but a solid player there as well. And hey, we'll see what Keyshawn Nixon does this year. Hey, I've seen players go from special teams to being stars on their respective sides of the ball. Specifically, I'm looking at you, Adam Thielen. Love you, buddy. It's good to still see you succeeding. So hey, maybe he turns into something good this year. We'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. Overall, I look at this defense. I have a hard time judging. It all kind of depends on what Jeff Hafley is as a defensive coordinator. If he's an upgrade over what they've had over the last couple of years there on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, hey, this should be an above average unit this year. I don't know if I'd go as far as to rank them top 10, but they should be an above average unit this year on the defensive side of the ball. If he's not good, it could be, below average. That's kind of the bandwidth we're working with here. I kind of think like a low ceiling, kind of a high floor a little bit. It's a low bandwidth of possibilities here. I think they have some good players, but ultimately they need a defensive coordinator to come in there and get the ducks in the row in that group. So, with that said, what are we thinking on the predictions? So, worst case scenario, I got them right there with the Lions, like 10-7. I have a hard time seeing this team not make the playoffs. They're just too good at quarterback right now. I feel like just too good on the offense in general, and I think the defense is going to be good enough. I think it's going to be good enough to get them over that finish line and get into the playoffs. So 10-7, worst case scenario for me. Best case scenario, I'm looking at like, I'm trying to think the way I want to do this. I put them right there with the Lions, like 13-4. Like I don't think their team is quite as good as the Lions. Ultimately, it might not matter. We'll see what happens here on the prediction side of things. But I just feel like if everything comes together, if Jeff Hafley shows up as advertised, if the offense is spectacular, no question in my mind, they could go 13-4 and be right there at the top of the NFC this year. No question in my mind. My prediction, though, I think they go 12-5. I think they win this division. I think that's the move right now. I think I did predict the Chicago Bears to win this division. I'm stupid sometimes, folks. I am stupid sometimes. So I do apologize for that, but I am stupid. 12-5 though, I think they win this division. I just feel like this is the year that Jordan Love steps up. I think this is the year where they really break through that ceiling and make a big playoff push when it's all said and done. So there you have it. It is 12-5, division winner. Congratulations preemptively to the Green Bay Packers. Sorry, I'm very tired, folks. Could you tell? Could you tell I'm very tired today? Okay, so next up, the team that is most near and dear to my heart, the team that has both made me, given me the best moments of my life and tortured me all at the same time. I am, of course, talking about the Minnesota Vikings. What are the Minnesota Vikings going to do this year? They had a bad season last year. Kirk Cousins gets hurt when he's playing MVP level football. And then ultimately it's a carousel of quarterbacks. Some of them play well. Then mostly, eventually, all of them end up playing badly. Go into this offseason, take their licks, go 7-10, really bad down the stretch of the year. And then, hey, what do? They go out there, they get a new quarterback. They get a quarterback in free agency. But obviously J.J. McCarthy gets hurt before everything happens, so now we're looking at the guy you brought in free agency being the starting quarterback. One of the draft picks dies. Never exactly count on that. So things are characteristically chaotic here in Minnesota. But with all of that said, let's get into the team itself. So starting off in the draft here, if I can ever get this thing pulled up, Yes, it's my favorite team. That I marked it on the ESPN app, so it's the first one on the list. So starting off in the first round, they take a couple big swings here. So they go J.J. McCarthy at 10. They trade up one spot to get him. He's already hurt. He's done for the season. Obviously won't be an impact player this year. You hope he's good for the seasons to come. Just doesn't apply to this year anymore. And they also trade back up into the first round after already trading up with Houston to get that pick. At 23. They trade up from 23 to 17, so they don't trade back up into the first round. They trade farther up into the first round. They give up even more assets to go up and get Dallas Turner, who had a immense slide. I definitely thought he was going to go in the top 10 in this draft. Ends up sliding all the way to 17. We trade up, we get him. Using the royal we here. The Vikings trade up, they get him, and now all of a sudden he's going to be expected to be a big contributor on this defense. And ultimately, even though the capital spent was akin to like a top 5 pick, essentially, I think he ended up getting a steal there at 17, just based on his slide in the draft. You hope he's really good. That's the bottom line there. If you're going to trade it for a player like that, you hope he's really good. Fourth round, they go and get Kyrie Jackson, cornerback out of Oklahoma. And again, rest in peace. Just a bummer to think about in every aspect. Just such a bummer to think about. Just, so young, so much life. But I don't want to dwell on that. Unfortunately, sixth round they get Walter Rouse, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. And then Will Reichert. That's really the last impact pickup there, I would say. He's been playing very well in camp, so he's probably going to be, well, at least our kicker for this year. We'll see what happens after this year, but he's doing real well. So hopefully, after years and years of suffering, we finally have an answer at kicker. Let's just say I've set my expectations low in that regard. So let's take a look at the roster here for the Minnesota Vikings this year. So first and foremost, at quarterback, we have got that darn man himself, Sam Darnold, the Jinja Ninja. I'll tell you what, man, he's a quarterback. I'll tell you what, he plays the quarterback at the NFL level and was drafted very highly. Very alive arm, really good arms, throws one hell of a spiral. You just don't know exactly who that spiral is going to at any given time of the day. Give me just 1 second. I gotta wet the whistle here. Gotta really coat the throat in electrolytes there. Gotta clear the throat. I might have lost my voice after today. All right, so Sam Darnold comes in as the starting quarterback. Listen, folks. Do I think Sam Darnold is going to be, just the second coming of Dante Culpepper? No. No, I do not. Do I think he's going to be terrible? It depends. Honestly, what I believe is that Kevin O'Connell is going to make it insanely easy for him, and with the weapons that he has at his disposal, guys are going to be open. It is a matter of, does Sam Darnold hit those guys when they're open? If he can do it, he's going to have a just fine season. Maybe he even makes the Pro Bowl if he's able to do that. If he can't, we're in some deep trouble, man. We are not looking good when it comes to quarterback play if he can't go, because it's the same guys that were there last year. Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall. You sign Matt Corral off the street to be your fourth-string guy. The cupboard is bare behind Sam Darnold, which generally is the case when you talk about quarterbacks, if he is not good this year. So need him to be good. The Vikings need Sam Darnold to be good this year if they want to do anything in the postseason. If he's not good, there is not a snowball's chance in hell they make the postseason. They're going to have another high draft pick next year, and it's back to the drawing board for the year of 2025. Outside of that, though, at running back, Aaron Jones is the starter with Ty Chandler as the backup right now. You hope Aaron Jones stays healthy is the main thing. I don't know. I still don't know how much I trust Ty Chandler at the running back position. I trust Kevin O'Connell to get him some good running options. But you hope Aaron Jones stays healthy because he's very good and fits a lot of what Kevin O'Connell does, both from a running standpoint, a receiving standpoint. I just think he's very, very good. So you hope he stays healthy. In the wide receiver core, still very solid. You got Justin Jefferson, you got Jordan Addison. You're going to need Jalen Naylor to step up big time this year, former 6th-round pick that's kind of stuck around, worked his way up the depth chart. You got Brandon Powell, Tristan Jackson. That's not Tristan, that's Tristan. Jackson, and then Trent Sherfield. So, not a particularly deep receiving core. I mean, like I said, you're going to need Jalen Nailor to step up in a big-time way this year to kind of, make this thing work. And you hope he does. I don't know enough about him, quite frankly. I know he's had some good flashes. It's about bringing that all together and really stepping up into that third receiver role, though. But that top two of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, I mean, about as good as you can ask for at the moment as far as a 1-2. I mean, Jordan Addison's got to stop, being drunk behind the wheel and parking in the wrong lane at LAX. But outside of that, I mean, parking on the road, by the way, in the wrong lane at LAX, just big-time dumb doo-doo dipshit sort of stuff here from Jordan Addison on that front. But if he can just stop doing that, he's a hell of a football player, man. And he's going into year 2. I think he's going to be just as good this year. It's just a matter of, hey, does Sam Darnold get him the ball? I know, Kevin O'Connell's going to scheme him open, and he's going to get himself open on multiple occasions as well. It's just, does he get him the ball? I don't even need to worry about Justin Jefferson. He's the best receiver in the league for my money. It's either him or Tyreek Hill, and it's, hey, what's your flavor, man? What's your flavor? I used to think definitively it was Tyreek Hill, but Justin Jefferson is just that dude. He is just that dude. He is a dynamic player, and pick your flavor. Justin Jefferson, I got no worries about him whatsoever, though. He is a stud out there at wide receiver. So overall, you add in TJ Hawkinson. Don't know when he's going to be back, but you hope it's back soon. Josh Oliver, geez, easy for me to say. More of a blocking tight end, but it showed some good stuff in the receiving options last year, or as far as being a receiving option last year. So maybe not quite as good of a receiving core as we've seen in previous years, but still really, really solid. I like the makeup of this group. You just hope Sam Darnold comes along, and we won't know the answer to that until we get into the season, quite frankly. So on the offensive, also, by the way, C.J. Ham, the Hammer, is still with the Minnesota Vikings. Fan favorite. The Ham Man can. I'll tell you that right now. I'll leave it at that. Offensive line. The guards are an ever-pressing question, but offensive tackles, we got Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. Boom. Need I say more? Maybe the best tackle duo in the entire league that's not in Philadelphia. On the interior, though, Blake Brandell steps in as the left guard. Worrying. Very worrying. Maybe Dalton Reisner takes his spot at some point. He played well for us down the stretch last year. Or I keep saying us and we. He played well for the Vikings last year down the stretch, so maybe he steps into the starting lineup. Garrett Bradbury, he is a perfectly average center at the NFL level. Not noteworthy even a little bit. Ed Ingram at right guard. Need him to step up in a big way here in year 3. Maybe it's year 2. No. It's year 3. Need him to step up in a big way here in year 3. He's going to have to be better than he has been in the past. They're going to need him to step up. So, overall, above average offensive line. I hesitate to rank them in the top 10 just because that left guard spot does scare me. I love the tackles. Take or leave the center here with Garrett Bradbury. Guards are a question for me. So, optimistically, I think they're going to be above average. I would hesitate to put them in the top 10 for that, though. As far as the offense overall, I kind of feel the same way as I do about the offensive line. Like, I feel like they're probably going to be above average because Kevin O'Connell is a brilliant man when it comes to scheming up the offense. But my questions about Sam Darnold, questions about the interior of the offensive line, there's just too many question marks for me to just outright put them, squarely in the top 10. I think they have that potential, but they're going to have to show me, quite frankly, with the way this team is made up. On the defensive side of the ball, on the defensive line, we got Jerry Tillery, who they brought over in free agency, which, okay. Nose tackle, we got Harrison Phillips, and the defensive end, we got Jonathan Bullard. Once again, I like Harrison Phillips. I'm okay with Jonathan Bullard. Not quite so sure about the Jerry Tillery signing. Overall, there are some question marks with this defensive line. I'm not really sold on what they're bringing to the table here on the defensive line. However, you look at at what's behind them. So we're looking at Jonathan Grenard. Bring him in as a pass rusher. I think he's primed for a big year. Athletic freak pretty much on the outside. Very good pass rusher, and especially in that Brian Flores defense, I think he puts up big numbers. On the other side, you got Andrew Van Ginkel, which we'll see. We'll see. Have him step up to that number 2 pass rusher role. He's got to have, big shoes to fill, or at the very least, like a big role to fill. We'll see if he steps up into it. Good continuity there with not continuity, but good history there with Brian Flores. Not that he played great under Brian Flores, but I digress on that front. And then the inside linebackers, you bring in Blake Cashman from free agency. Really solid pickup there. He was a tackling machine last year with the Texans. And they got Ivan Pace, standout, undrafted rookie last year. They just, lucked their way into getting this guy. He's a stud out there. Another tackling machine, flies around on the defensive side of the ball. So, again, defensive line, got some question marks about it. Actually really like this group of linebackers that they have back there. So overall, I look at this front seven, I think, again, above average. I like their looks, which is not something I could have said last year outside of like Danielle Hunter. So I love the direction that this team is going on the front seven. On the back end, we are looking at Stephon Gilmore, who they just brought in on a 1-year deal. The ageless Harrison Smith at strong safety. Cameron Bynum at free safety. Shaquille Griffin at the other cornerback, and Byron Murphy in the nickel back. I guess Josh Metellus is slated as a nickel. He's essentially a safety. He just plays literally every position on the defense. I mean, that's not an exaggeration either. Throughout the course of last year, in that chaotic Brian Flores scheme, Josh Metellus lined up at literally all 11 positions on the defense last year. One of the wildest facts in all of football that he was able to do that. Overall, I look at this group on the back end. It looks better than it did last year. It really does. Even with the deficiencies that we've got, from not having great depth. Like, there isn't really great depth. I mean, you got a Caleb Evans out there. He's a solid player. That's a depth pickup right there. You've got, Byron Murphy's a stud out there. I mean, I like the secondary actually a lot better than I expected at the moment. And hey, with Brian Flores at the helm, I think they could be a top 10 unit this year. I really do. I think they added enough on this defensive side of the ball. I think they bolstered up that front seven, got some help on the back end. It's kind of a whole new slate on the back end, at least as far on the outside, except for Byron Murphy. But I like what they did this offseason. I think the personnel is better. I think the defensive coordinator is that same exact dude who was that mad scientist. I mean, creating a new defense pretty much last year with the havoc that he was willing to inflict on offenses. I really like this group. I really like this group on the defensive side of the ball. But let's go to the predictions here. So, worst case scenario, the way I see it for the Vikings, 6-11. Like, I see many realities where our enemies win, in the words of Paul Atreides. We do have this one narrow path to victory to get there. If we don't hit that narrow path, though, 6-11 is in the cards. And I mean, that's really solely based off the Sam Darnold thing. If he shows up and is terrible, the offense is going to be unreliable. They're going to turn the ball over a lot. We've already seen that time and time again with Nick Mullins when he gets into the lineup. The dude is a gunslinger. He throws interceptions. That is going to happen. He's going to make some plays that you go like, wow, that was awesome. He's also going to make some plays that make you think he's the worst quarterback in the NFL. That's just the Nick Mullins experience. And if Sam Darnold's not good, if the interior of that offensive line is a disaster, if the defensive line really is such a liability that it affects the entire defense, 6-11 very much in the cards. Would be a great draft pick. Would not be a fun season for your boy, though. I'll tell you that much. Would not be fun. So that's the worst case scenario. Best case for him right now, at least the way I see it, probably 10-7. And maybe my answer would have been different if J.J. McCarthy would have stayed healthy. Maybe I go with an 11-win season in there. Maybe that was in the cards for me. But I just don't see it. I don't trust Sam Darnold, quite frankly. I hope I'm wrong. And trust me, if anyone, there's no one in the world that hopes I'm wrong more than me right now. I just have a feeling that, the body of work that Sam Darnold has put out there, probably going to hold true this season. So 10-7 is the ceiling I got on them. Overall, I think they go 9-8 this year. I don't think they're going to be terrible. I think Sam Darnold is going to be serviceable. I don't think he's going to be some Pro Bowl level great quarterback necessarily, but I think he's going to be serviceable. I think the defense is going to be very good. I think they're going to be competitive in games, but maybe just on the outside looking in from the playoff picture, unless the NFC just really cannibalizes itself and the wild cards are a little bit down this year. But 9-8 just feels like the spot for the Vikings this year. It's a real bummer that J.J. McCarthy got hurt, man. I was liking the things that I was hearing and seeing from him in the preseason. And we'll never know what the rookie season could have been. We'll just have to look forward to 2025 on that front. But hey, 9-8. I mean, hey, competitive is better than not competitive, so I'll take it. I'll take it right now. I'd like more, but you take what you're given at the end of the day, I suppose. So, last one we got here, the most interesting team in the division for my money, that is the Chicago Bears. As we round out this this segment here with this, round out this season. Really, it's the division preview season. We're rounding it out with one of the more interesting teams to talk about. I mean, what more could you possibly want, folks? What more could you possibly want? So, obviously, last year, they played around with Justin Fields. It didn't necessarily work. But also, they had that Panthers draft pick. They were good enough towards the end of the season where they got some momentum built for this coming year. But ultimately, didn't quite finish in a spot where you would, get that Caleb Williams sort of draft pick. But they just absolutely fleeced the Panthers so bad that ultimately it worked out for them, and they got a top 10 pick already at the number 9 spot, I believe it was. And then they go back in the first overall pick and they get their quarterback of the future. I mean, it amazes me how great that trade was from Ryan Poles. I mean, one of the best trades of all time. It kind of depends on how these draft picks work out. But one of the best trade fleecings of all time. I mean, shout out Scott Fitterer. Bad GMing. I mean, from start to finish, not very good in Carolina at putting together that roster. But you bring in Caleb Williams, you bolster up the defense even more this offseason. The defense was already good last year under Matt Eberflus's tutelage. Now you bring in Shane Waldron as the offensive coordinator, good down-the-field passer with the Seattle Seahawks. And all of a sudden, you got a great wide receiver core. This Bears team is primed for a playoff run. Mark my words. But before I get too ahead of myself, let's get into the draft first and foremost. Obviously, number 1 overall, they get Caleb Williams, legitimately a generational talent at quarterback. And he's, so far, lived up to the hype in training camp. We'll see what happens when the season gets started, but he's been spectacular in the preseason. Then you get your number 1 wide receiver of the future, maybe, in Rome Odunze at number 9. Adding to an already really, solid receiving core that they already had. With DJ Moore, you bring in Keenan Allen this offseason, Cole Kmet at tight end, already getting to the depth chart. Excuse me, I do apologize. Then in the 4th round, really high for a punter, but he's a hell of a punter. They draft Torrey Taylor. You hope that pays off because you paid a 4th round pick for him. But that just shows how good he was in college. He was the entire team for Iowa. He was a stud when he was at Iowa, and he got a whole lot of work doing it too. So you hope he lives up to the hype. The Bears have kind of had a punter problem there for quite some time, so you're hoping Torrey Taylor kind of fixes that coming up here. And then their final pick of the draft was Austin Booker at edge out of Kansas. So, hey, not a whole lot of draft picks. Again, they had trades too. Especially the Preston Smith trade kind of set them back on that front. Traded for DJ Moore as part of the Panthers deal, which again, one of the worst deals by a GM of all time on Scott Fitterer's side. One of the greatest deals of all time by a GM in Ryan Poles' side. Just an astonishing trade. And an astonishing trade that it ever went through in the first place because he fleeced Scott Fitterer. But I digress on that front. Let's just go to the depth chart, shall we? I'm losing steam here fast. All right, so I apologize. That was disgusting. All right, so at quarterback, we got Caleb Williams with Tyson Bagent as his backup. I think he's a stud. I think he's going to step in and be Rookie of the Year right away. I think he's going to be off to the races because he's got a great cast around him, and we'll get to that here right now, actually. So in the backfield, they got DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, and Roshan Johnson. Really solid, deep backfield there that they've got for the Bears. Goodness gracious. A really good backfield. But we'll get to the offensive line here in just a second. I like the makeup, though. Maybe no like top end great running backs back there, but a really deep, solid group of guys that they've got. Wide receiver, you got the 1, 2, 3 of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, respectively. You've got Tyler Scott, Velus Jones, and DeAndre Carter behind him. Really great 1, 2, 3. Worried about the 4, 5, 6, but really great 1, 2, 3. If they can all stay healthy, this is a really, really solid group of wide receivers and a good, talented young quarterback throwing to them. And obviously, you've got Cole Kmet. You bring in Gerald Everett this offseason, too. So just receiving options galore. You got to love, I mean, again, said it around the draft time, but it's worth reiterating. Caleb Williams is probably coming into the best situation for a number 1 overall pick of all time. Like, I'm not sure there's ever been a better situation for a guy drafted number 1 overall. And I would say I'm excited to see what happens here, but I mean, the Bears. I hate the Bears. It's ingrained in my soul to hate the Bears. So this is all to say I feel very good and also very bad about things that are on the outside there for the Bears. At the offensive line, they got Braxton Jones coming back for year 2, I think it is. Tevin Jenkins at left guard, Ryan Bates at center, Nate Davis at right guard, and Darnell Wright. He's the one going into his second year. I think Braxton Jones going into his third year, I want to say. Overall, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a top 10 group on the offensive line. I'd say it's probably like a little bit above average, but compared to where it was when Ryan Poles took over, just the disaster that the offensive line was, I mean, they've come a long way. Like, they're still probably an offseason away from really getting this to a top-end group on the offensive line. But credit where it's due, Ryan Poles has done a hell of a job with incrementally improving that offensive line to a point where it's serviceable now. You trust having a good young quarterback behind that offensive line, especially one that can move around like Caleb Williams. And that's just not something you could have said a season or even 2 seasons ago at this point. And that's all credit to Ryan Poles in the front office, just, incrementally getting more and more players there. Sneaky, this could be a top 10 offense this year. I mean, I'm not going to go out here and just explicitly say it off the bat. I think they're going to be above average for sure. But don't be surprised at the end of the year if the Chicago Bears are sitting there in the top 10 and some people are saying, wow, Caleb Williams really turned out great. That running game's doing so well. The offensive line is much better than I thought it would be. Don't be shocked if that happens, man. Don't be shocked, because this Bears offense, it's more talented than it's been in years right now. It's a really, really good group they got there. And again, all the credit in the world to Ryan Poles for putting this thing together. All right, so on the defensive side of the ball, again, continues to get better offseason after offseason, and this offseason was no different. So they got Montez Sweat there, who they bring in from the Commies last year. Really, really good pass rusher. You expect him to be your number 1 out there. Andrew Billings, Gervon Dexter, DeMarcus Walker are rounding out your defensive line. Still some questions in the pass rush for sure. Like they're still in need of some additions there in that category. You hope the defensive line plays well, I suppose. But there's some unproven commodities there. You hope Gervon Dexter steps up. He was kind of a higher draft pick whenever you got him. But just overall, I put him like right around average. One really good pass rusher and a bunch of, kind of unknowns outside of that. At the linebacking core, they have got T.J. Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, and Jack Sanborn. I don't really know how much Jack Sanborn's going to be playing, but that 1-2 of Edwards and Edmonds, I mean, about as good as you can ask for in the league right now. They're very, very good inside linebackers. They hit, they cover. They are very, very good at what they do, and I think they kind of elevate the entire front seven when it's all said and done. On the outside, though, on the back end, you have got Jalen Johnson really came on last year. Jaquan Brisker has kind of found himself a good role with this Bears defense. Kevin Byard, we'll see what he has left in the tank, but he's back there at free safety. You got Tyreek Stevenson as the other cornerback opposite of Jalen Johnson. And you got Kyler Gordon in the nickel. Every year it feels like this secondary gets better. It was a problem for him last year. And I don't think it's not something that you think about, but at the same time, it's better than it was last year. I think they're solidly serviceable this year on the back end. and they didn't need to be great last year in order to have like a borderline top 10 unit. So with that in mind, I think this really could be a top 10 unit this year. I really, really believe that in the bottom of my loins, that this is going to be a really good defense this year. I think they're going to have a really good offense as well. So with that, I'd say the worst case scenario for the Bears, you're going to have to bear with me on this one. I do think it's like 7-10, 8-9. That's really my feel on the whole situation, because there could be some growing pains offensively for the young quarterback. There are some holes in the defense. You can't deny that. And if they get exploited, the defense could underperform relative to what I'm expecting. So 7-10, 8-9 could be in the cards when I see this whole season shaken out. Best case scenario, this could be an 11 win team. I think 11-6 is not out of the question at all. This is a team that, if Caleb Williams plays up to expectation, and I think he will in this offense, the defense lives up to what they did last year and continues to improve, they could be one of the better teams in the NFC right out of the gates this year. I mean, this is a team that's ready to explode on the scene. Maybe like a year early for a Super Bowl run, but they should be a playoff team this year. I really believe that they should be a playoff team this year just based on what is in the building. And it pains my soul to say that. But I just feel very strongly about this team, that they're doing the right things. They're doing things that good organizations do. I think they're evaluating very well in the draft, bringing in the right free agents. 11-6, if everything goes right, 11-6 is very much in the cards. My prediction, I think 10-7 this year. I think, again, there's going to be some growing pains for that young quarterback this year. There's no question about it. I think he's going to have some spectacular games. Maybe he's going to have a few off games in there. I think he will live up to expectations right out of the gate. So I think by the end of the year, he's going to be playing very, very well. But sometime in the in-between, probably going to drop a few games in there. But ultimately, I think 10-7 gets them in the dance, whether it be a 7 seed, whether it be a 6 seed, even if the cards fall right for them in that aspect. But I feel like they're going to be a playoff team this year. That's just, I have a strong feeling about that in my gut, and we'll see what happens when they get in the dance. But I like the direction that this Bears team is going. I really, really do. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. We get back to twice a week whenever I get back from vacation. All rejoice, all rejoice. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Football season is here. Week 1 of college football will be occurring while I'm on vacation. Enjoy all of that. Enjoy Georgia Tech. I hope you enjoyed Georgia Tech and Florida State the weekend before this is coming out. But I hope you enjoy all the great Week 1 slate. There's a lot of great games out there, and I'm looking forward to it all. I'm just gonna just devour all of football. We're so close. We're so tantalizingly close right now. We are at football season, folks. We're right there on the doorstep. But back to 2 times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting next week, or 2 weeks from now. I do apologize. Well, no. Next week. I keep forgetting this is pre-recorded. So yeah, next week, we're back to 2 episodes a week. If you enjoy this episode, go ahead and hit subscribe, like wherever you're listening to this, review, rate, share with a friend, help me grow this thing a little bit. Let's keep this thing moving in the right direction. I can do it myself, but I need you all to do it. Also, no evidence at all that I can do it myself, because it has not really worked to this point, but I need all of you out there to help me grow this damn thing right now. We're moving in the right direction, slowly but surely, but we're moving there, and I am nothing if not persistent. So share this thing, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want to follow me on the socials, it is at CalebVUA on Twitter, and that's pretty much the only place I'm at. So go there if you want to follow my occasional tweets. Sometimes about sports, sometimes about just dumb thoughts in my head. You're just going to have to, roll the dice and see what happens there on that one. If you want to contact me, get in touch with me about the show. If you want to contribute anything, probably just shoot me a DM on Twitter. I'll be most responsive that way. You can also shoot me an email at unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. That will also be down in the description along with the Twitter. So with that, thank you so much for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. As always, I have got, just no clue what I'm talking about. It's never been more prominent than it has right now. One thing I learned this week, though, The island of Tristan da Cunha has been settled since 1817, kind of a remote island, I believe, out in the Pacific. It's either Pacific or Atlantic. I apologize. So, been settled since 1817 with a population of no more than a few hundred people during that entire time. In the 207 years of its settlement, no one has been arrested for a crime. Not one person in the entire 207-year history of Tristan da Cunha's settlement. Wild. Crimes are happening. They're just not being arrested. I can guarantee you that right this second. That's insane. But with that, I appreciate y'all. I'm going to go edit this thing and just become one with my couch. I hope you're having a good week. I know for a fact I am. So I will see you all next Monday for a little bit of college football recap and a little bit of NFL preview. Oh, boys, we are back. We are back, and I will see you then for football season. Deuces.